The chariot was swinging wildly to and fro. The pace was faster. He had lost control. Not he, but the horses were directing the course. That light weight in the car, those feeble hands clutching the reins, had told them their own driver was not there. They were the masters then. No one else could command them. They left the road and rushed where they chose, up, down, to the right, to the left. They nearly wrecked the chariot against the scorpion, and brought up short, almost ran into the crab. But this time the poor charioteer was half fainting with terror, and he let the reins fall. That was the signal for still more mad and reckless running. The horses soared up to the very top of the sky, and then, plunging headlong down, they set the world on fire. The highest mountains were the first to burn. Ida and Helicon, where the Muses dwell. Parnassus, the heaven-piercing Olympus. Down their slopes, the flame ran to the low-lying valleys and the dark forest lands, until all things everywhere were ablaze. The springs turned into steam, the rivers shrank. It is said that it was then the Nile fled and hid her head, which is still hidden. I'll hit it second. In the car, Phaethon hardly keeping his pace there, was wrapped in thick smoke and heat as if from a fiery furnace. He wanted nothing except to have this torment and terror ended. He would have welcomed death. Mother Earth, too, could bear no more. She uttered a great cry, which reached up to the entities. Looking down from Olympus, they saw that they must act quickly if the world was to be saved. Jove seized his thunderbolt and hurled it at the rash, repentant driver. It struck him dead, shattered the chariot, and made the maddened horses rush down into the sea. Phaethon, all on fire, fell from the car, through the air, to the earth. The mysterious river Eridanus, which no mortal eyes have ever seen, received him and put out the flames and cooled the body. The Naiads, in pity for him, so bold and so young to die, buried him and carved upon the tomb, "Here Phaethon lies, who drove the sun entity's car. Greatly he failed, but he had greatly dared." His sisters, the Heliads, daughters of Helios, the sun, came to his grave to mourn for him. There they were turned into poplar trees on the bank of the Eridanus, where sorrowing they wept into the stream forever, and each tear as it falls shines in the water, a glistening drop of water. They weep. Pegasus and Bellerophon. Two of the episodes in this story are taken from the earliest poets. Hesiod in the 8th or 9th century tells about Chimera and Antaia's love, and the sad end of Bellerophon are in the Iliad. The rest of the story is first told and best by Pindar in the first half of the 5th century, BCE. In Ephyra, the city later called Corinth. Glaucus was king. He was the son of Sisyphus, who, in Hades, must forever try to roll a stone uphill because he once betrayed a secret of Zeus. Glaucus, too, drew down on himself the displeasure of heaven. He was a great horseman, and he fed his horses human flesh to make them fierce in battle. Such monstrous deeds always angered the entities, and they served him as he had served others. He was thrown from his chariot, and his horses tore him to bits and devoured him. In the city, a bold and beautiful young man named Bellerophon was generally held to be his son. It was rumored, however, that Bellerophon had a mightier father, Poseidon himself, the ruler of the sea, and the youth's surpassing gifts of spirit and body made this account of his birth seem likely. Moreover, his mother, Eurynome, although a mortal, had been taught by Athena, until in wit and wisdom she was the peer of the entities. It was only to be expected on all scores that Bellerophon should seem less mortal than divine. Great adventures would call to such a one, as he, and no peril would ever hold him back. And yet the deed for which he is best known needed no courage at all, no effort even. Even it proved that what man would swear cannot be done must not be hoped for. The great power on high can give into his hand an easy mastery. More than anything on earth, Bellerophon wanted Pegasus, a marvelous horse which had sprung from the Gorgon's blood, where Perseus killed her. He was a winged steed, unwearying of flight, sweeping through air swift as a gale of wind. Wonders attended him. The spring beloved of poets, Hippocrene on Helicon, the Muses' mountain, had sprung up where his hoof had struck the earth. Who could catch and tame such a creature? Bellerophon suffered from hopeless longing. The wise seer Ephyra, Corinth, Polyidus, to whom he told his desperate desire, advised him to go to Athena's temple and sleep there. The entities often spoke to men in their dreams, so Bellerophon went to the holy place, and when he was lying deep in slumber beside the altar, he seemed to the female entity standing before him with some golden thing in her hand. She said to him, "Asleep? Nay, wake. Here is what will charm the steed you covet." He sprang to his feet. No female entity was there, but a marvelous object lay in front of him, a bridle, all of gold, such as never had been seen before. Hopefully, at last, with it in his hand, he hurried out to the fields to find Pegasus. He caught sight of him, drinking from the far-famed spring of Corinth, Purene, and he drew gently near. The horse looked at him tranquilly, neither startled nor afraid, and suffered himself to be bridled without the least trouble. Athena's charm had worked. Bellerophon was master of the golden creature, of the glorious creature. In his full suit of bronze armor, he leapt upon his back and put him through his paces. The horse seemed to delight in the sport as much as he himself. Now he was lord of the air, flying wherever he would, envied of all. As matters turned out, Pegasus was not only a joy, but a help in time of need as well, for her hard trials lay before Bellerophon. In some way we are not told how, except that it was purely through accident. He killed his brother and went to Argos, where King Proetus purified him. Now we see, well, we don't see because I'm not sure when this drawing was done, but Bellerophon on Pegasus killing the Chimera. And it's like a lion, but there's a snake. Oh, it doesn't look like a multi thing. It just looks like a lion out there, you know. And you know, the snake, and isn't there supposed to be a goat or something up here? But I'm not really seeing any signs of the goat. But the snake could be connected via the tail, because you don't know where the snake's tail, the end of this, you know, you have his head, but you know, typical Greek guy in the tunic thing with his head, sword out like that on the flying horse. They're spiritual beings that are like flying horses, but there his trials began, and his great deeds as well. Antaea, wife of Proetus, fell in love with him, and when he turned from her and would have nothing to do with her, in her bitter anger she told her husband that his guest had wronged her and must die. Enraged though he was, Proetus would not kill him. Bellerophon had eaten at his table, and he could not bring himself to use violence against him. However, he made a plan which seemed certain to have the same result. He asked the youth to take a letter to the king of Lycia in Asia, which to a Greek person, they only Asia was a much smaller reference than the continent. And Bellerophon, easily angered, long journeys meant nothing to him. On Pegasus's back, the Lycian king received him with antique hospitality and entertained him splendidly for 9 days before he asked to see the letter. Then he read that Proetus wanted the young man killed. He did not care to do so for the same reason that he'd made Proetus unwilling. Zeus's well-known hostility to those who broke the bond between host and guest. There could be no objection, however, to sending the stranger on an adventure, him and his winged horse. So he asked him to go and slay the Chimera, feeling quite assured that he would never come back. The Chimera was held to be unconquerable. She was a most singular portent, a lion in front, a serpent behind, a goat in between. Yeah, see, I knew there was supposed to be a goat. A fearful creature, great and swift of foot and strong, whose breath was flame unquenchable. But for Bellerophon riding Pegasus, there was no need to come anywhere near the flaming monster. He soared up over her and shot her with his arrows at no risk to himself.